South. That's where he conducted official, presidential activities from when he was on vacation. So that I think that's the reason that location was chosen. The reason for doing it at all is the conversation I think we should be having, though.
Oh yeah, no. Well, we know what the reason is. This is political payback. This is they have declared war using the Justice Department. And folks, here's the thing you got to understand: there has never, ever been a raid on a president's private residence ever in the history. Even in Nixon's case, there was not a raid of his private home. This is unprecedented. So far, there's really been no real evidence that they've been able to come up with that would support. You can look at his speech. You can look at conversations that the president had during and following what happened on January 6th. But so far they've come, and you can look at it and say, he could have done this. He should have done this. Maybe he was a jerk here or there, but you can't. There's no way you can tie together something that is of a felonious nature, whether it is conspiracy or direct assault. There is no legal basis or foundation for what it is that they're doing. It's all political.
Absolutely, 100%. And here's what's always was gotten me about the system too. When you talk about what's going on, if it's just so everybody's clear, they're saying that he had classified information down in Mar-a-Lago. Well, Craig, that's as if, listen, that was where his White House of the South was. That's where his vacation home was. All right. So everything today is good. You lose the election. The paperwork you have to get rid of. So that's the rule. However, you still have all of those items in your head. All right. This always used to fascinate me when dealing with secret and top secret information. All right. You have to destroy this piece of information. It's top secret. All right. Well, I still have it in my head. What if I write it down after you leave? Well, you can't do that. Why not? It's just so that could be what's going on here. The president's writing memoirs or something like that, and happens to include information that hasn't been cleared for release yet. It was gone. Everything was destroyed, and he wrote down what he had in his head, which was where top secret information, and secret information can be stored in your memory, right? So it's always kind of, that part's always kind of fascinating. But you're right. Going after a president at his home like this never occurred before. Not once ever occurred. Do you remember get a little sci-fi audio right here in the movie Star Wars, right, where they're traveling along in the first Star Wars, the first ever, and Obi-Wan sits down and says, "I felt a great disturbance in the Force after the planet blew up."
Yeah.
Well, I think that must have happened yesterday after the Democrats decided, hey, let's raid his house. That'll get us all sorts of support. Where everybody else just went, oh my God, what did these idiots just do? It's just, there's been a great disturbance here.
Well, but and supposedly they just got this
is good.
Yeah. Supposedly they just got this big win, which I believe in the end the American people are going to slap them down for. But supposedly in their eyes, they got this big win. I mean, the New York Times is talking about how about how Joe Biden is on a roll. But supposedly they got this big win, and now the entire news cycle on their quote unquote Inflation Reduction Act, and we'll talk more about that, has passed. And they lost a whole news cycle to they're raiding the president's home.
Yeah. And again, all this does, Craig, and I heard about this. It was probably about 6 or 7 o'clock yesterday after we were off the air. And I kept thinking, what are they doing? I mean, they're just, they might as well, the Democrats might as well call the Republican houses and say, listen, we'd like you to vote for Republicans this time. We don't want it anymore. Just do it. You got, we'll get to Governor DeSantis also, but, look at Trump's base right now. They've been quiet for a couple of months. He's been quiet. They're waiting for the right timing. They're out on the streets this morning about to damn riot over what's happened to the president.
Right.
The former president. It's they have just. It's like they're throwing super pills at everybody. Here, take it.
Because
be stronger.
Mike, here's the thing, and this is one of the other reasons why this is unprecedented, and why people are claiming that this is the move that happens in a banana republic. He's not just the former president; he's the leading candidate to oppose the president in the next election. All the polls have him as the number one candidate to run against the president. The sitting president. So this is clearly, I mean, if if they believe that Donald Trump should have been impeached for saying to a guy to Zelensky, hey, you should check into this thing that's happening with the president's son over here, then how much more obvious is it that the persecution that they are currently conducting on Donald Trump, the presumptive, I won't say presumptive, but the likely nominee to run against him, how is that not attacking a political opponent?
Yeah, this is. Listen, if you think and trying to remain under the algorithm radar here, right? If you think the insurrection was bad, try coming after this man with a pair of handcuffs. Try and see what happens if you go after this man with a pair of handcuffs.
I'll tell you what. You would have to have evidence that is so clear cut and condemning that his own kids would have to be able to vote guilty if they were sitting on the jury. That's how. Right. I mean, we're talking. It has to be slam dunk. This guy, and the problem is they're never going to find that. They're never going to find that, even if it exists, which I do not believe that it does. Even if it exists, they're going to have to find it, and they won't. And so politically, they are never, ever, ever going to get what it is that they think they want. Right. But Mike, here's the other thing: is I'm like, okay, so let's say you get what you want. Let's say you get Donald Trump, and he's not able to run. What are y'all going to do to DeSantis? How are you guys going to beat Ron DeSantis? I mean,
they're not.
Any Republican.
They're done, and they know that,
Right.
They're not.
They're not. So, anyway,
well, if we take down Trump, that means DeSantis falls also. It's just a narrow-minded thinking that you see. Look at the daily decisions you see coming out of there, Craig. Anybody with a dime store calculator can look at this climate bill and go, these numbers don't work. What the hell are they talking about? Everything that they're doing is absolutely, it's fairy dust and rainbows. It's not real, and Mike, and everybody, they think everybody believes them.
Well, let's touch on that real quick, because that gets us to our next point. Because this question, when I talk about is it an actual Inflation Reduction Act? This is largely not just based on the fact that, oh well, if you read the bill, you know that there's almost nothing in there that reduces inflation. If you go and you read the analysis by the Congressional Budget Office, that too will tell you, there's almost nothing here that will reduce inflation. In fact, especially the first year out, it actually increases inflation. But Mike, the funny part is, look at all the news coverage following it. No one's talking about any of the inflation reduction measures. Everyone is talking about the climate stuff that is in there. Everyone is talking about the tax increases. Everyone is talking about the 87,000 new IRS agents that they're talking about hiring. Mike, none of this reduces inflation. Absolutely none of it. But once again, it goes to show you all they did was they took they took Build Back Better. It failed. They made a baby Build Back Better. It failed. They renamed that baby and brought it back and called it the Inflation Reduction Act, and it passed.
Here's how they win, Craig, right? This is, again, according to the left brain, what I'll do is I'll tax more people and I'll create more people to go collect the taxes and put that money in with our money, and there'll be more money in ours, which will mean we spend less. So we win. That's how the numbers work for them.
Here's what's funny. Talk about numbers. So there are under 800 or around 700, but under 800 billionaires in all of the United States, right? They hired 87,000 new agents. Now, let me ask you something. How many agents do you think it's going to take for them to audit each and every one of those billionaires? Folks, these auditors are going to exist to come after you and I. Right, to people who have side hustles. If you're driving Uber or Lyft or Dash Diner, whatever it is, you're doing a side hustle or something like that. They are going to be all up in your financial business to find out and see if you are in fact, if they can catch you paying taxes. So 108. So it's going to be 108 agents going after
Per
each.
billionaire. Yes.
Yeah,
Each
yeah,
billionaire.
per
Yeah.
billionaire.
Yeah.
And the other
Per billionaire.
question I have is, where are they going to get all these agents? Because first of all, the IRS is not known for paying very well. And you can't just go hire somebody out of, McDonald's who's currently working at McDonald's or Starbucks. You got to have someone with some sort of a financial background, some sort of a legal background that can do these jobs. My question is, who are these people? Where are they going to get
It's
them?
going to be part of the migrant workforce program.
Oh, whoa, there you go.
We got 100,000 coming across every month. There's your people, Craig.
There you go. There you go. You go to call the IRS and you pick up the phone and you get someone with a foreign accent saying, "Hello, my name is Bob. How may I help you?" I'm not going to do the accent.
Hola, soy Bob.
Hola, soy Bob. Uno más. But yeah,
these numbers don't work. Clearly don't work. You can't make them work. Yet it's some sort of a victory. I don't even see how this one stands up to a judicial review.
In the eyes of their of the people of their when I say their constituency, I'm not talking about their voters. I'm talking about in the eyes of the people who fund them. You basically just added 87,000 new public employee union members, people who are going to go after taxpayers in order to bleed you and I of cash. You've now also added $300 billion to the climate change hoke industry. We'll call it the industry, which is basically going to go into suppressing business, suppressing production here in the United States. There's a 15% minimum tax on employers, and I want to make this very clear: employers, which is going to reduce their ability to be able to hire people. It's going to do is it is going to slow down the economy because fewer people are going to be able to work. American businesses are going to be less competitive, and that's just a fact. That's just how things are gonna chime out here in the United States. It will not make things better. It will in fact make things worse. Now, one way in which I do believe it's going to help Republicans is now it's on House Democrats. We know the senators who voted for it. Now Democrats, because they have such a slim majority, Democrats, especially Democrats in very, very tough areas, are going to have to either vote for it or against it. And it's going to give their Republican opponents something with which they may beat them about the head and face.
Yeah. Yes, very, very much so. And it'll be beautiful to watch, right?
Oh, it will be, because I'm just going to say, look, like I said, if I were running a campaign, and I am running at least part of a campaign. I'm helping on a campaign. We will be talking about the IRS agents that are going to be coming to your door. Because, oh, by the way, did you see that the resurgence of the information regarding the 4,500 firearms and 5 million rounds of ammunition that are in the possession of the IRS? Yeah, yes. They needed agents for those firearms.
That's what they needed. You can't have these firearms doing nothing.
Exactly. I saw that one meme, like literally they're collecting taxes at gunpoint.
Yes. Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
And that is the world in which we live. And moving right along. Oh, Mikey, you got some DeSantis news. Why don't you go ahead and let us know what's going on with our good boy DeSantis.
I figure we just wrap it all up into one DeSantis title. Let's see if I can remember all three of them as we get started here. The first is he is clearly jumping on the defense of Donald Trump here, and now everybody knows that these are two camps, two individuals that obviously know each other, but they're not sitting in the same household the whole time. However, again, both fighting the same common enemy. So now when Trump gets his Mar-a-Lago raided, DeSantis is like rallying troops throughout Florida and throughout the Republican base, trying to bring attention to the plight that's going on. I would be surprised if there wasn't rallies outside of Mar-a-Lago or outside of some local federal office based on what DeSantis does to try and continue to show support for the conservative being. So he's been his story on this side is rather than being the victim, he's pointing out the flaws. It's saying it's just they've been going after it time after time again, just finding everything that's been going on and then pointing it out. I bet there'll be, if they had stayed any longer, there'd have been protesters outside protesting the FBI.
Well, and Mike, the one thing I want to point out on this is, look, no one is above the law. If the former president broke the law, then he should be held accountable. But when you start talking about sending law enforcement after political enemies, you better be darn sure that he's guilty of whatever it is you are investigating him for. Because once again, this is how banana republics function.
Yes. Yep, absolutely right. So, second thing he's done this week, it was something rather nice. Florida is one of those states where if you're out of state and you see a Florida license plate on a car, you may not recognize it as a Florida license plate because Florida has something like 150 different approved license plates. It's ridiculous. Well, the newest one to get approved is right behind your head there, Craig. Don't Tread on Me is now authorized as part of a license plate. Now, the article you're taking a look at there was some editorial who says that DeSantis did this to warn other people out of state. No, nothing of the such. It's just finally he said, listen, we are a Second Amendment supporting country and a Second Amendment supporting state. So we're making sure that Don't Tread on Me, which was, a battle cry from the Revolutionary War. Their two are obviously related today still, and we're allowing that to be on our license plates. Heck, listen, go to, what is it, New Hampshire? It says live free or die, so all of these things where people all of a sudden are saying DeSantis has just authorized a domestic terrorism symbol to be allowed on a license plate. Come on.
Well,
right?
Yeah, it was exactly. Look, the problem is that is that you have people who literally are trying to stifle freedom of speech. They don't want people to be able. And I'm like this. Look, the revolutionary spirit, and that's what I'm talking about here. The revolutionary spirit is what has made America as strong as it is. It's this. Look, if our government is not representing us, we need to stand up and we need to fight against that government. Now, we have the ability to do that nonviolently through elections. And it's not uncommon for people of both political stripes, Republican and Democrat, the right of the right and the left of the left, to use, war metaphor, military metaphors when talking about elections. So I'm like this. We need to stand up. We need to be engaged, and we need to be engaged out of love of our country. And when I talk about love of our country, I'm talking about the values upon which this nation is founded, right? Those are the things that make us who we are as a nation. You look like you're cheering. You're like,
I am. I'm cheering.
Or
for
you're
your
yawning.
American. I'm like, no, you're doing your American.
I didn't have him cheering. I had him yawning. But anyway,
you're doing your Pride of America thing, and I was like, yes.
Anyway, but once again, it goes back to, I'm surprised I haven't heard the racist claims regarding the Gadsden flag as well, because as you know, anything conservative or anything that liberals don't like is obviously racist.
It's racist. Oh, yeah, that's true. Maybe that's what they're looking for in Mar-a-Lago, racist classified information. So
there you go.
Let's see. The third DeSantis update was we gave you last week, or was it earlier this week? No, it was last week. We had the governor DeSantis went in and removed a state attorney there who had vowed not to enforce certain laws. I mean, written statements, like wrote them out, put them on letterhead, gave them to his department. Clear of things. This wasn't some innuendo on a podcast or anything like that. This was actual written documents that he signed and put out. That state attorney says he's going to be fighting this suspension, which has to be done through the Florida Senate, by the way, the Republican-controlled Florida Senate. Says he will be fighting it vigorously. The governor came back and responded, "What are you going to go back in time and unwrite the letters?"
Well, yeah. The problem is that, and it's not just the letters, but it's, you look at what he has done, and see, here's the thing.
Yeah,
You
his
can
track
look at
record.
what
Yeah,
he has
yeah.
done and the decisions to not prosecute in many cases. You can look at those individually and of themselves and say, well, he has allowed discretion. Right. But your discretion is available for each individual case. You are not allowed to implement a policy where you say you are going to selectively enforce certain laws and not enforce other laws. You don't get to do that as a member of the executive branch. And we know that he did this because he has signed letters and pledges and made public statements that was exactly what he was going to do. So he can't even fall back on I have discretion in individual cases, because he's said it as a matter of policy that he was going to be working against these things. And and that's all the ammunition that the Republican-controlled Florida State Senate needs to say, nah, sorry, Felicia. Bye, Felicia.
Yep. Very true. Very true. All right, and that's the DeSantis update for the week, Craig. Now you've got a much better one.
Oh, yes. Okay. Y'all are going to love this one. All right. I know you're wondering, what is YTCA? Okay. If you want to have an idea of just how far in such a short time we have come as a society, for those of you who do not know, the YMCA is the Young Men's Christian Association. That's the organization that originally formed what we now know to be the YMCA, which is anything but Christian, sadly.
Yes.
But
yeah,
that's a conversation for another time. So there was in Washington State, there was an 80-year-old woman who was in the locker room and noticed an individual who appeared to be built like a man in the women's locker room, wearing a woman's swimsuit, who was helping young girls with the restroom, helping them get their bathing suits on and off so that they could use the restroom. And this 80-year-old woman went over and inquired if that was a man, and needless to say, they didn't respond very well. And the woman actually, and I'll go to the story here. Specifically, she asked, oh no, wait, where did I stick that? I asked if he had a penis, and he said it was none of my business. I told the man to get out right now. So what you have is an 80-year-old woman who came across a trans employee. And for those of you who are confused, not a transit employee, a male transitioning to female employee who evidently had not fully undergone the transition, was in the locker room with young girls. And this 80-year-old woman basically has now been banned for asking this employee, for telling this employee to get out, this, as she understood it to be male employee, to get out of the bathroom. She has now been banned from the Young Men's Christian Association, once again for demanding that an employee with a penis leave the locker room. See, I made sure to not defame the person, not to misgender, but I did point out it was an employee with a penis.
You did. You said it a couple of times. Listen, it's an 80-year-old woman. She identified the twig and berries and said, "You got to go. It's time to get out. You're not allowed to be in this room. This is not the room for that." And all of a sudden, we're going to throw an 80-year-old woman out because her entire life she's been taught men have a penis, girls have a vagina, and the door the door has a sign that says women, and she identified somebody that didn't have the right parts and said, "You got to go, get away from them little kids." And now we're throwing an 80-year-old woman out. Hey, Washington State, you get what you deserve. That's all I'm saying. Elections have consequences.
Here's the thing. While I may not necessarily agree with society, if the society decides that this is the direction that they want to go, I'm not going to like it. I'm probably going to fight against it, but I at least I get it. But my issue is, at a certain point, I mean, once again, this is a woman who probably for, let's say 70 76 of her 80 years, it was, you knew what men and women were, and it was real obvious, and there was just one way to tell. There was primarily one way to tell, and then all of a sudden that is now thrown out the window. We're now going to take that person, and we're going to hold that person accountable to today's standards, not be forgiving. I mean, I give you an example. My mother, before she passed away, she was in her 70s, and there were things that my mother would say that were not necessarily, would not be considered appropriate in today's society, right? I didn't banish my mother because I just realized that was the time that she grew up in. And she may have wanted to be all, politically correct, but in the end, at a certain, I still believe this, at a certain age, that button in your head that says, don't say that button stops working. And, I just think to hold people accountable, because if that were the case, if we were to fire or get rid of or lock out or ban people for the stuff they said, then we have a president who should have been gone a long time ago.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right. All right. Well, let's move on, Craig. We got to get to some parting shots here.
It's time to move on to our parting shots. This first one, I think, is incredibly appropriate, following the raid on President Trump's home, because there are a bunch of people who should have their homes raided, but haven't. Let's take a look at a small list. Let's see. People who haven't been raided by the FBI. Pedophiles associated with Jeffrey Epstein. That includes Bill Clinton and Bill Gates, the two Bills. Yep. Hillary Clinton. Well, we all know that she's already, wiped her hard drive.
Her server's gone. Yeah.
Hunter Biden. Now we know there's got to be a treasure. If just based on what is on his laptop, Lord only knows what's in his home. Yeah. And then you have Representative Swalwell, who's still, by the way, sitting in the House of Representatives, and we know for a fact he was sleeping with a Chinese spy, but his home hasn't been raided. In fact, I think he still sits on the Intelligence Committee, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So
yes, he does.
All of them, and President Trump is now being, his home has been raided because he gave a speech saying we need to stand up and fight for our country. Okay. That's the world we live in these days. I will just tell you, Democrat, my fellow Democrats, or not my friends who are Democrats, I will just tell you, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You're not going to like it when this is turned back on you. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying they should do it, but I am saying do not be surprised when it happens and realize you opened that door.
Craig, the only problem is you no longer can tell the goose from the gander.
That is true. Like, I gender identify.
I identify as a gander, even though I'm a goose. I identify as a gander.
Well. Anyway, whether you identify as a goose or a gander, you have laid a big fat goose egg.
Yes.
All right. How about a shout out to our sponsors, Mike?
Let's say hey to our good friends at uscombatgear.com, California Republican Assembly, Grid Defense, and of course, Guerrilla Machining.
Folks, links to all of their websites are in the description of this video. Please visit them. If you like what you see there, spend some money with them, or at the very least, just tell them hello. Tell them that the guys over at the Rundown sent you. And with that, we're going to call it an episode for today. Lord knows what's going to happen. Stuff seems to happen as soon as we log off. But whatever happens, we will be talking about it with you tomorrow on Hump Day.
Hump Day.